Let's see. Okay. So basically, in my approach, I initiate person-centered therapy, so PCT, and cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, to create a client-centered model. So PCT focuses on empathy, unconditional positive regard, and emotional healing, and so allowing clients to feel heard and valued. So, and then on the other end, which I like to use at the end of our sessions, which would be CBT, which is emphasizing like cognitive restructuring, behavioral interventions, and helping clients challenge negative thought patterns to adopt healthier coping strategies. So by combining these two, the goal of mine was to address both emotional and cognitive needs of a patient, and help clients understand and explore these emotions while taking like actions and meaningful change within their lives. So especially uh, these integrated approaches is especially helpful in multicultural counseling, which I talked about in my paper, and aligns with my personal values of empathy, growth, and support. And so we can start our session. So I'm Harper, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
So what brought you into counseling or therapy? And is there any specific things you would like to talk about?
Well, I'm starting to feel anxiety when I began to start and do new things. When I'm the things I'm familiar with, I'm good with, but whenever something else new that's different from what I've done before is introduced to me, I just feel nervous. I feel anxiety, and I just need help.
Yeah. So a lot of anxiety just around change and new things. So I want to make sure you feel heard today. So can you elaborate on any of those emotions, where like stems from, or an exact kind of um like a real world example of where it happens in your life, where you feel most anxious at work or at home or family?
So when I grew up, my parents had such high expectations of me. Even when I made my grades, I usually make straight A's. But if I had a fear of making anything less than an A, all of a sudden my palms start sweating, my heart started beating fast. So that when I get into a situation that's unfamiliar, I get the same feelings from my childhood,
Okay.
feelings of not feeling like I'm good enough or that I'll do well enough or anything like that.
Mhm. So this mostly comes from your childhood. Can you tell me more about the relationship you have with your parents, or the relationships you have now that bring anxiety, if they come from maybe a male or female, like authority figures
It's from my father.
okay.
So whenever I see men or a male figure or a male manager, CEO, or a boss at my job or in my school, I have a tendency to have flashbacks of when I was little, when I felt sure of myself. But then my father broke me down by telling me that it wasn't good enough. I could have did better, or I should have did better, or my grades could have been better.
Well, I'm sorry you felt that way. Just those emotions surrounding that. That's a very tough topic to talk about, I know. So thanks for sharing. And you mentioned you did feel really anxious when these things come up. So what are the specific thoughts that you kind of feel when you start to get anxious, or is it a body reaction, or do you think it's more of just in your mind that you feel very overwhelmed and anxious, or is it also a physical kind of?
Well, it could be something that I already know,
Mhm.
but because it's introduced to me by a particular person or a male figure, I have a tendency to begin to get nervous. My heart beats fast. I'm unsure of myself. Sometimes I forget things that I know that I knew before
Mhm.
just because that particular person is asking me the question.
So when you're in these situations, is it easier for you to take a step back and just take a breath, or what do you think would be helpful ways for you logically or practically when you get really anxious to face those emotions instead of
Well,
shutting down or getting overwhelmed?
Well, sometimes I separate myself. I'll say I'm going to the restroom, or I'll find some kind of excuse to get away from it, to try to catch my breath or to calm myself down. But when I began to think about going back to the situation, sometimes the feelings feel like they're going to reoccur.
I think that's really a positive thing for you to be able to step back and take those emotions and just take a breath. Because I think that's the biggest thing is letting those emotions take over and having anxiety, attacks or anything in your work and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool that you're able to do that. And that's really empowering. And so are there any other small steps you think you could take or you would like to take in the future to help control your anxiety or emotions?
Maybe if I focus on something that's positive in my life, like my children or my mom, or maybe that'll alleviate some of my anxiety.
Yeah.
Because when it came to my mom growing up, I was good.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's definitely a safe space for you, which is really important to step back and focus on those positive emotions rather than the negative ones that you get from the anxiety. Um, so how would you like to see yourself handling anxiety in these situations in the future? And what do you think that might look like for you? Or do you want to
I,
do a role playing assignment? That would be another option too.
I would like to not get the anxiety when I see certain people. I would like to feel more confident when I'm interacting with males at work.
Mhm.
Um, I would love to be sure of myself, or maybe I could give myself some positive reinforcement.
Yeah, definitely having those people, not just counselors, but just in your life that continue to give you positive feedback and make you validated in those emotions, because those are totally valid emotions for you to have. And I think that's really hard to face that in the workplace or in life. And so for me, how can I support you in taking those steps? And what would be the most helpful way for you to move forward in this?
I feel like I need to have smaller time periods with talking to male individuals, and slowly maybe increase the time that I have to deal with them, or use some kind of positive thoughts to help me to move forward. But right now it's so big until I feel overwhelmed. So maybe chunking it into small steps
Yes.
help me.
Yeah, I think small steps will be good, but like you said too, it's really important to set those boundaries that you know that is overwhelming. So not putting yourself in those situations where knowing your limits and just being okay with, okay, maybe today isn't the time to talk to these people, but maybe tomorrow. And so I think that's really important. I love that you said that. And so just before we finish, is there anything else on your mind or something that you would like to revisit? Or maybe even any steps you could take this week to get closer to your goal of speaking more openly with these male coworkers or management?
Maybe if I start journaling my experiences before I talk to you, so I can give more specific details of the feeling at that particular moment so that I could track it maybe.
And it'd be important also to just track it because it will tell us which situations are flaring or making you the most anxious. So it is always cool to journal because then you can look back and see where you've made your positive changes or where we can grow more. So thank you so much for meeting me for your first session. I hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see.